Coming to you live from our studio here at Adesanwe Kanda in Accra. Coming up this evening, Customs and National Security intercept 12 trucks in major transit. Fraud said to be to cost the nation some 85 million Ghana cedis in revenue. We have details of what exactly these 12 trucks were carrying and why they intended to evade the state, where they intended to swerve and steal some 85 million Ghana cedi in revenue. Details in a moment. Also coming up, rising wave of terror in West Africa sparks urgent calls for regional and international action as Ghana Armed Forces assures border communities of improved security in the wake of recent attacks on Ghanaian traders in Burkina Faso. And later tonight, government releases 855 million cedis to pay cocoa farmers as majority backs sweeping reforms to revive cocoa board. And finally, in the headlines, we have details as the majority in parliament says cocoa farmers must direct their anger at the NPP for what they describe as years of mismanagement of the sector. My name is Martin Asiedu-Dartey. We are live on 3news.com. That's our website. We are also streaming on Facebook and on YouTube. So do let us hear from you on the many stories we have lined up for you. Details in a moment. Details of our stories now. And a joint operation by the Customs Division of the Ghana Revenue Authority, the GRA, and National Security has intercepted 12 articulated trucks suspected to be part of 18 vehicles that were fraudulently gated out of the customs system. The trucks, loaded with 44,055 packages of edible cooking oil, tomato paste, and spaghetti, were declared as transit goods from Akano and destined for Niger through Kulungugu. However, they were allegedly moving without the mandatory customs escort required for transit cargo. Initial tax assessment estimated a loss of 2.6 million Ghana cedis, but a reassessment revealed the actual tax liability exceeded 85 million Ghana cedis, a significant potential revenue loss to the state. Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Ampem has described the development as deeply troubling, citing the scale of revenue leakage. He has directed customs to conduct a full-scale investigation and submit findings within 1 week. Let's listen to what exactly the Deputy Finance Minister has been saying. Then we'll speak to our man, George Queening, who has been following this story for us in a moment.
They were intercepted deep in the night. And so about 11 of them are currently here, as we can see. We haven't seen about 6 trucks as we speak. So investigation is ongoing to identify the location of the 6 trucks that we haven't been able to identify. Initial assessment of these by customs indicated that it was worth about 2.6 million in taxes. But when they did reassessment, they have realized that the actual value of the taxes that is due the state is over 85 million Ghana cedis. And so this is a huge revenue leakage to the state. These are things that we are taking seriously, very, very seriously, because we have seen deliberate attempt to steal from the state. The leakage through our customs operations is so much that we are taking serious exception to this. And so we are going to continue with this collaboration between the national security and customs officials to make sure that we nip this in the bud.
And that is Deputy Finance Minister Thomas Ampem, who has been at the gates grounds, or has been at the grounds with the national security team, who forcefully intercepted some 12 articulated trucks. And we are told that they actually were evading taxes in excess of about 85 million Ghana cedis. And that was after a reassessment of the initial amount. Let's speak to George Queening now. He is our man who's been following this story for us. George, thank you for your time. To start with, Martin, where exactly was this like a tip-off before the minister and the security officials moved in? And tell us the location where they found these trucks.
So this very operation was yesterday. That was 10 p.m. and it lasted through the night till 5 a.m. That's today. So it was along the Dorinya Tema Road. So it was more like a tip-off. And so there were 18 of them all together, but they were able to intercept 12. So 6 are missing. But the minister has actually directed the GRA to investigate this very matter, because on the regular, with these transit vehicles, you have to have 2 officials from GRA as part of the protocols to assist with this very transit, but they were not part of that operation. That is what the minister really wants to unravel, why that breach really occurred. So the GRA is supposed to come with, good results within a week. The commissioner actually has certified that he will do that. That's Anthony Sapon. But one thing is, when you declare goods as transit goods, the taxes you're supposed to pay will not be what you pay when you're actually bringing them to Ghana. That was meant to be. Yeah, so that's what it is. So they were trying to evade taxes worth 85 million. That's huge money. Martin.
That's quite a substantial amount. So the idea, for those of you who are just following us or who are just joining, the story is that, and George, correct me if I'm wrong, these trucks had items in them, and we were told, or we are being told, that these items were headed out of Ghana, specifically to Niger.
So they were actually from, what's the name? How do you call this place?
Akano,
heading to Niger, but they were actually coming to Ghana.
So they were. The destination is Ghana.
But if you say it's transit, you pay some taxes.
Okay.
So when these people bring owners or beneficiaries of these goods, when they bring them to Ghana, they beat down the prices because they were not able to pay some tax. So it will actually affect businesses who are actually pricing real-time value.
Exactly.
You get what I mean? So it actually impacts negatively on other businesses that are thriving.
Okay.
And the trackers that were on the tracks were disabled. So if you have trackers on the track, GRA officials can monitor your movement, your route and all that. So they disabled it. Then they were out of the route.
So they were unable to track them in their offices.
Exactly.
Okay. So were any arrests made apart from the impounding of these trucks?
No,
have they picked anybody into custody?
No, not yet.
Were they able to find who the owner of these trucks were, or the goods?
Not yet. I'm sure within the week when GRA is actually done with their investigation, I'm sure all that will come to bear.
Okay. And so what next, now that these trucks have been impounded? Where are they located at the moment?
They're actually at the Tema Port. There's this yard where they keep these transit vehicles. So what the minister has said is they will actually use the law of confiscation, where they will sell them real value and then put the money in the state coffers.
Right. Basically. So they are investigating.
Yeah, exactly.
But if they are unable to unravel the owners and then
whether they really had real documentation
for that,
apply the law of confiscation
and then sell it, and then take the money into the state coffers.
Yeah.
All right. So do we know what next from here on?
So the GRA is treating businesses to work in. They should not work in isolation. So make sure your business is clear. Be real, be transparent, and don't be cutting corners like these trucks have done. Okay.
George Quening, thank you for giving us that update. And if you're just joining us, the news is that late last night, I should say, through up until this morning, some 18 trucks, we are told, had disabled their trackers, and they had goods that had edible cooking oil, tomato paste, and spaghetti. And of the 18 trucks, 6 of them are out of sight. They are unable to track where these 6 are, but 12 of the remaining 18 have been impounded by the state. And we are told that after a re-evaluation of the content that they were carrying, the amount of taxes that were being evaded is up to about 85 million Ghana cedis. So the state has confiscated them and is likely, based on what we have just been told, investigations are ongoing. But if nothing concrete is presented after the investigation, if the owners are not found or those who are the brains behind it are not apprehended, the state will sell off these items, tomato paste, cooking oil, and spaghetti, sell it out, and then put that revenue back into the state coffers. So we would see how all of this plays out, especially now that investigations have commenced, and I would update you subsequently on how all of it goes. This is 3FM 92.7. You're listening to Hot Edition. Let's take our attention now to Parliament, and the House has been talking about the long conversation about Ghana's cocoa. And you'd recall that in the last few days, the conversation about cocoa has dominated discussions. Well, the majority in Parliament has waded into it heavily, and they have dismissed calls for a bailout for cocoa farmers amidst a reduction of the prices of the commodity on the international market. Chairman of the Finance Committee, Isaac Adongo, says government has released 854 million cedis to settle arrears owed to farmers following the recent payment crisis that left many producers unpaid for months despite delivering their produce to buying companies. He has defended the measures, insisting they are necessary to restore financial stability and place Cocoa Board back on a sustainable path. Let's listen to Isaac Adongo, who's been speaking to the media in Parliament.
We have heard a lot of comments from our colleagues, and they have tended all of a sudden to pretend as though they are the people who love the people of Ghana, when Ghanaians were very clear that they were enemies of Ghana and didn't want them near the Flagstaff House anymore. The bottom line of all that has happened is that some amounts were owed to cocoa farmers, and the government took a decision to repay those monies so that the cocoa buying companies can settle those outstanding obligations. I'm happy to report to you that this morning the government has released 855 million for the purposes of paying those outstanding obligations. But permit me to say, ladies and gentlemen, that we have decided to introduce a number of reforms. But those reforms that we are introducing are reforms that are long overdue. The cocoa sector has been under enormous strain over the years, and we have pretended to be servicing cocoa farmers, when in fact what we have done is to destroy the vehicle that we are using to support the cocoa farmers.
And that's the voice of Isaac Adongo, who has been confirming that the state or the finance ministry has released 854 million Ghana cedis to settle arrears owed to cocoa farmers. Now, he also argued that the excess borrowing of the New Patriotic Party government has rendered Ghana incapable of borrowing from the international capital market to offer a bailout for the cocoa farmers. He says the previous administration cannot lift or shift blame onto the current administration.
Cocoa Board entered 2025 with roughly 17.8 billion in loans, plus significant operational liabilities. So loans alone was about 17.8 billion by the beginning of 2025. And if you add this to other obligations, you will soon come to realize that at this point, Cocoa Board was bleeding with an exposure of over 60 billion Ghana cedis. Certainly, that vehicle could not be sustainable and needed to be addressed. I just want to tell you something simple. You know, what is the name? If you have a basket in which you put water to drink and the bucket is leaking, do you fit the leak before you put water inside? Or you continue to put the water inside hoping that some will be left for you to drink? Ehinana edi konsuo nabo. Obe so ano ansan wa sansuo eguma ana. Obe se nsuo egum no wadwen se nyame bebo na nsuo na kem. You have 60 billion of somebody's money. It's not free money. You are not paying. And you are saying that we should continue to even go and borrow more. You know, maybe you don't listen to our people. These are people, even the Common Bible, they read it in reverse. And these are the people advising us to go and add more debt when we cannot even pay 60 billion. And because we have kept quiet, somehow they think that these illogical arguments that they are advancing is what will save the people of Ghana. We are resetting the cocoa sector.
And in conclusion, before we speak to Christian Yali, our correspondent in Parliament who sat through this press conference, Mr. Adongo also argued that the excessive borrowing of the New Patriotic Party is to blame largely for that, and said the majority maintains cocoa farmers are ultimately better off under the new measures, yet they are also calling for lashes for the officials of the erstwhile NPP government.
When Cocoa Board had 286,000 bales of jute sacks sitting at the port, they only went and cleared 91,000 of them and left the rest at the port. Meanwhile, they also had 75,000 bales of jute sacks. So add that to what is in the port. They had enough to last them another 3-4 years. But just a few days before they left office, they went and contracted and paid 48 million to bring in 80,000 bales of jute sacks. These are reckless people. If it was possible in the days that we were shipping people, these are people that we have to line up and tell cocoa farmers, it is the conduct of these people that denied the government of Ghana the resources to properly take care of you at this point in time. So that we'll give everybody a cane. Cocoa farmers will ship you in tow. Then we will know who is at fault. But these are the type of people, because they can sing and dance more than everybody. Sometimes they tend to think that when they tell the same lie many times, it becomes the truth. If Ghanaians were not vigilant, I'm sure one day they would have told us that Psalm 23 has 118 verses. And that when you get to you get to 118, you don't proceed to 120. You rather come back to 20. Or is it 22? Yeah. But you people are very vigilant. You won't go and quote the Quran. You go and enter space anyway.
Right, so that is the Member of Parliament who is also on the majority side and is currently on he's currently the chairman of the Finance Committee, Isaac Adongo, addressing or giving the majority's position on the cocoa statement or the cocoa cases that have dominated public conversations in the last few days. Let's speak to our parliamentary correspondent, Christian Yali. Mr. Yali, good evening. Thank you for joining us on 3FM.
Thank you, Martin.
So what was this press conference largely to react to what the NPP had been saying, or it was largely to just state government's position on how they are solving the problem?
Martin, I would say that largely it was to react to some of the concerns that the New Patriotic Party, especially the minority caucus, has been raising. You would understand that or recall even that from the very beginning of this week on Tuesday, one of the major issues that the minority propagated in the chamber and in a number of press conferences has been the demand for government to restore the farmgate cocoa producer price to at least 3,625 cedis per 64 kilogram bag, which they say was the amount the current government inherited. And so if anything at all, if government is unable to adjust prices upwards, they shouldn't rather downgrade the prices that cocoa farmers are to receive, what they have predominantly termed as a haircut given the cocoa farmers. So even before this, I earlier in the week had an engagement with the chairman on the Food, Agriculture and Cocoa Affairs Committee on the majority side, who equally took time to explain why we are at this stage as a country in the cocoa sector. But I realized that because now most of these issues have been transmitted more or less to the finance ministry, the chairman of the finance committee, Isaac Adongo, also sought to officially also state the position of the finance committee, because you realize that, Martin, the other issue about the Cocoa Road project, which, largely has been blamed for the current crisis because you have about 23 billion cedis of commitment that the previous administration made towards the Cocoa Road project. And so Cocoa Board in and of itself is believed to have lost focus by failing to concentrate on production and supply and now shifting its attention towards Cocoa Road project, for which reason many have cited for the current situation that we find ourselves in. And so that whole project of the Cocoa Road has now been given to the Ministry of Roads and Highways, especially under the Highways Authority and Urban Roads and the rest of them, to manage, so that Cocoa Board can focus its attention on its core mandate of production and supply. And so the Finance Committee has also stated that position. In fact, that press conference also had in attendance the Deputy Agric Minister, John DeMello. We had the chairman on the Economy and Development Committee also there, as well as the chairman on the Food, Agric and Cocoa Affairs, Martin.
Right. So he mentioned an amount of money that has been released for the payment of the arrears. He says 854 million cedis. Do we know whether this has already hit the accounts of the institutions that are to pay these farmers? Did he give any further explanation as to the amount?
We did not get that exact explanation, but Martin, as it were, once government releases this amount, the 854 million or nearly 55 million cedis that we are quoting right now, it will go to the licensed cocoa buying companies, the LBCs, who directly buy the cocoa or the cocoa beans from the farmers and then distribute to the various facilities or companies for onward sales. And so it is expected that this amount would hit the account of the various LBCs who deal directly with the cocoa farmers. And so, but already the report that I have taken from other platforms even indicates that some of the cocoa farmers have begun receiving a disbursement of this amount. But Martin, the other worry for Isaac Adongo is the fact that when you look at the contract that Cocoa Board awarded in 2017 alone, an amount of 1.4 billion cedis, within 2018-2019 about 14 billion, and then in 2020 during the COVID period we had about 5.3 billion all in cedis. And so it all comes.
You have no call.
Unfortunately, we have lost Christian Yali on the line because we ran out of the capacity to hear him loud and clear from Parliament. But he was just wrapping up the position he was sharing with us regarding what the majority's position is on the current cocoa debacle and the back and forth. Now, many of you would argue that it is important that, having been Ghana's economic backbone for several years, we need to decouple political name calling and tagging from issues of cocoa, because over the years, well more than 4 or 5 decades, cocoa has been a mainstay for a lot of farmers, and then also the fact that they have helped the Ghanaian economy to keep afloat and even thrive under certain circumstances. So it is important that as a country we stop politicizing issues of cocoa and issues that are the bread and butter issues of every day. And more importantly, these are the aspects of our economy. When you break it down, cocoa plays a very vital role. So in as much as it is a majority that is talking about it, it is important also to look at the substance of the argument they are putting across and the solutions they are proffering in order to safeguard Ghana's cocoa sector. Christian Yali is back with us to conclude the submission he was making. Christian, yes, you were telling us about the way forward and the strategy the majority is proposing regarding the cocoa crisis.
Yes, Martin, and even to pick it up from where he just landed, in fact, he indicates that as it stands, Cocoa Board needs not less than 30 billion cedis to finance its activities and to be able to operate. And so what it means is that we are looking at over 30 billion cedis to offset the existing debt, and then we are able to look ahead into the future. And so Isaac Adongo maintains that the cocoa sector reforms are timely to ensure Cocoa Board is restructured with enough working capital. That is very important. The working capital is something that Cocoa Board needs to be able to operate and also undertake its financial obligations, and then it is able to serve the people of Ghana and make that sector more vibrant and viable for the Ghanaian people. And so he's of the view that these raft of measures that have been enumerated by government are very aggressive financially and will help to absorb the excess burden that was put on cocoa board and allow it to focus on its core mandate going forward. And so, by and large, he has defended all the measures that government has announced through the finance minister, and is saying that they on the majority side are interested and they are, also compassionate. They share in the sentiment of the cocoa farmers and other farmers at large. And so the government wouldn't do anything that would go in a disadvantage of farmers, or that would be a rip-off of all the hard work that they put into their work.
Right, Christian Yali, thank you for that report from Parliament. And Christian Yali is our parliamentary correspondent, updating us on what has gone on, especially having to do with the majority side's press conference and the fact that we need to decouple politics from major issues like the issue of our cocoa sector, which is important for the Ghanaian economy. You're still listening to 3FM on 92.7. Let's move on to some other stories now. And you can tell that, again, the issue of insecurity has dominated public conversations, especially within the West African sub-region. Now, a fresh wave of deadly attacks across parts of West Africa is renewing concerns about rising insecurity in the sub-region and prompting calls for urgent coordinated action. In the last 2 weeks, close to 100 people have died in attacks linked to armed militants in northern Nigeria. States include Kebbi, the Niger state, and Borno states have seen simultaneous dawn attacks, with some residents fleeing. In the northeast, fighters from the Islamic State West Africa province launched a raid on military base in Cross Kawa village in Borno state, reportedly killing 8 soldiers and wounding more than 20 others before retreating. Beyond Nigeria, violence also struck Titao in northern Burkina Faso, where an attack on February 14 claimed the lives of 8 Ghanaian traders. Survivors were later evacuated by the Ghana Armed Forces. Security analysts say that the pattern is worrying, and the developments have reinforced fears that extremist and armed groups are expanding their operational reach across the Sahel and coastal West Africa. This week, the United States reportedly dispatched troops to Nigeria to support counter-terrorism efforts, underscoring growing international concern about the deteriorating security landscape. The regional bloc ECOWAS is also under renewed pressure to do more to stem the tide, particularly in instability in the Sahel region increasingly spills southward. So what is fueling this persistent instability? Let's go to the phone lines now and speak to Dr. Victor Doke, who is a security consultant and lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center. Doc, good evening to you. Thank you for your time.
Hello, Martin. Thank you for having me.
It looks as though the issues of insecurity never fades away, especially within the West African sub-region. And now the individuals or groups that undertake these inhumane activities seem to be coordinating their attacks. What would your reading be, looking at the fact that in as much as African leaders or West African leaders are meeting and talking about these insecurity issues, the numbers keep increasing, the attacks keep increasing?
Well, thank you for that. The reason why we are getting a renewed sense with regards to activities of terrorist groups is because, one, the individual states have come to realize that these armed elements are not just there for fashion. They are not just there, for any other reason. They are to stabilize the peace and, enabling environment for development to thrive. The other factor is also because of the economic disparities in the area an analysis of the fact that young men who don't have any kind of employment opportunities, advantages in those areas will easily be radicalized and join an armed group, okay, affiliated to those outside the component for activities such as this. The economic factors are one, lack of development are another. The issue about security measures being put in place. You have areas where the local government is non-existent. Okay, so when you are not able to cover that area and then govern that space, then it becomes volatile. It becomes an avenue for these armed groups to take advantage of, solidify their position, their stance, and their ideologies, and then propagate this evil. Now, let's look at the collective security cooperation with regards to what Africa and outside what ECOWAS is doing. We seem not to have a very firm approach to this kind of menace. We've heard ECOWAS talk about the establishment of the 1,650, force to counter these extremists or terrorists. It is yet to materialize. There's a lot that has to go into that policy itself. Okay, we're talking about food contribution, logistics, positioning aspects, it response, every other aspect necessary for this, framework to be operationalized. We are yet to see. Now let's go back. We have Accra Initiative, where it offers the opportunity for intelligence sharing, information sharing, exchange of ideas when it comes to the security space, to counter terrorism. What happened? Okay, after the three violent states opted out, what has come of Accra Initiative? Will something else come up apart from that? What is the existing protocol with regards to response on the sub-regional level as of now? Okay, do the individuals have the capacity to respond to this menace in the quantum that is happening in Tao, the northern part of Benin, the northern part of Nigeria, northern part of Togo, Niger, and elsewhere? So the individual states, as it is now, have the honors to protect its citizens from terrorist attacks. Obviously, you see what is happening in some of the Italian states, some parts of West Africa. It's a challenge, okay? It's a challenge. The state does not have the capacity. So those of us who have not yet experienced these attacks, what do we do? This is the question now that needs to be answered. Proactiveness on the security front, coordination, intelligence sharing, resource mobilization, and the political will. Okay, the right people to the right offices is also one aspect that we need to look at, because we can have technocrats in places where they are not supposed to be. They will not be efficient. These are some of the reasons out of many that seems to be the problem why we are not being able to counter the problem, be it from the national point of view or the sub-regional point of view.
Right, Doc, and kindly, let's maybe take it a step back. Could it also be that our lack of responsiveness and the fact that we seem to be doing more talking than taking action and less sharing of intelligence, etc., is the reason why these insurgents or jihadists are, they seem to be able to read that in as much as we are democratic and trying to be coordinated, our ability to want to be coordinated leaves us vulnerable. So they are picking one and each of us every now and then and attacking. So we do not have a coordinated front. How can we coordinate? Several conferences have been held, meetings have been held, conversations, always documentation, paperwork. But like, for instance, when the coup happened in Niger, there were calls for a standby military force to, at least, if not for anything at all, West Africa needs that kind of a standby force to be deployed immediately. Intelligence is picked that something is happening in any other country. But all of that remains talk shop with zero action. Could that be one of the weaknesses that these jihadists are capitalizing on, that we don't have a united front as a sub-region?
Yes, right. So this is one of the reasons. Now, Any armed group that wants to expand its operations and then destabilize the peace would definitely take advantage of any opportunity. Now, as you rightly said, we have very beautiful conferences and all of that. Recently, we had one here. It was a high-level consultative board meeting or conference on what regional security and coordination or cooperation. What comes out of this, one of these many conferences that have been had on security, on counter-terrorism, building our security fund, and building our many units to counter these insurgencies. Okay? The frameworks, the commendations that have come out of all these conferences are supposed to be put together and implemented. One of the reasons also being that we've not been able to implement these very robust, good recommendations to make it successful or bring it to fruition to establish a very robust mechanism to counter terrorism. It's one of the reasons. So it ties to the political wheel. Okay, we have different heads of state, different military leaders, ministers of defense coming together, deliberating, and what happens after that is the question. I think we need to move from the rhetoric as we gradually take that and start, actionable implementation of recommendations and ideas. If we don't do that, then it means that we are just creating more avenues for these armed elements to have what? More room and then take up more grounds. Okay? It may be Tikal next time. It may be Tikal now, but we don't know what's going to happen next time. So we need to enhance that interstate collaboration, that interstate coordination when it comes to the security front to tackle this menace. Other than that, we will be in for a very tough time. We need the mechanisms that have been existing, like the initiatives and whatnot, that has been defined now. We need to revive them. Aside that, can we have something different? That's what we need to look at. And you rightly hit the nail on the head. I think from now onwards, the actions that we take will determine whether we are successful in the fight against terrorism or not.
Okay. And Doc, maybe finally, before you take leave of us, Ghana, this is the first time in probably since jihadist attacks began, especially within the West African sub-region, that Ghana has been directly affected. Although the attack was not in Ghana, Ghanaians have lost their lives, 8 individuals. What can we as a country do? Maybe not necessarily within the sub-region, but as a country, how can we ensure that first of all, we prevent any such attacks from happening, and or if they do happen, the impact wouldn't be as deadly as it was a few days ago?
Okay, so let me use the Tikal case as an example. That would bring out what we should do with the recommendations. One, intelligence sharing with regards to the area Tikal itself, and then largely the activities of terrorists groups in that area. What intelligence came out from the mission or embassy to Ghana counterparts for us as citizens or the traders to avoid the privy to, for us to know that area A is not what good or safe to go to, area C and D is okay for us to do. That interagency collaboration wasn't there. Apart from that, on the military front, the military intelligence, we pick up any intelligence with regards to how our traders will be able to avoid certain areas. So just to give an overview of what we need to do, intelligence sharing needs to be efficient. You can have very beautiful structures, frameworks in place when it comes to intelligence, but if you are not on the ground, if you are not emitting the information coming in, you'll be taken by surprise. We need to make sure that the right people are the right places. We need to invest resources. Okay, you can't take intelligence when you don't have the up-to-date technological, systems to help you transmit information, analyze information and data for you to respond effectively. Okay, remain in uniform, and those who are at the forefront, training, political will again, it's very essential. When you have the political will, it transcends across all these areas or sectors that I've mentioned, and it will be served. We, the citizens, also need to sort of like take upon ourselves to be engaging with regards to information, not only in Burkina Faso, in the sub-region as a whole, what is happening in every corner, so we will be better informed. For example, those students who try their trade elsewhere, which areas do they need to avoid, tourists, where do they need to go, which areas do they need to, I mean, all these things have to be considered. That is what we can do as citizens for ourselves to take that, to protect ourselves. But apart from that, the state has a bigger responsibility in protecting its citizens. They are the foremost responsibility when it comes to the protection of security. So the state has to be seen to be coordinating every aspect when it comes to curbing terrorism or any other threat. And here, Martin, I tie these recommendations to the fact that we need to have a Minister of Defense ASAP. Why do I say so? That leadership vacuum there is not good for us. The representation of that office is essential in coordinating activities of every security agency.
Right.
Okay? It is very essential that we have a representative that will coordinate, interdepartment meetings, ideas, even with the foreign counterparts, for us to be able to learn lessons and know what is happening elsewhere. We need to, as a matter of fact, call on the president to appoint a substantive minister of defense as soon as possible.
Okay.
Coordinate activities of the security force.
Right. Dr. Victor Dartey, thank you so much for your time this evening and your thoughts on these issues. And he is a security analyst and also a lecturer at the Kofi Annan International Peacekeeping and Training Center, Dr. Victor Dartey there. And the latter part of his submission, where he is calling for citizen participation in sharing intelligence, is very crucial, especially on the back of the fact that it is individuals that are involved that unfortunately some of them lost their lives, and based on information we are picking up that they had prior notice that some of these jihadists were planning to attack. If that information had been shared much earlier, it's likely that we could have prevented the deaths of individuals who were said to have been involved in this. And unfortunately, we have lost 8 Ghanaian lives to something that many thought was far away from us. Well, as we speak, the matter of the insecurity in the sub-region and the recent attacks on some 8 Ghanaians, plus how it is going to affect the daily lives of business owners who go to Burkina to ply their trade, buy tomatoes, etc., is back on the floor of Parliament for discussions. Let's join that feed and hear what exactly the MPs are saying.
Was conducted, and what enhanced security and safe passage mechanisms were activated in these places, knowing very well the situation and the threats we have in this country. And it comes at a time where for 7 months we have no substantive defense minister who will lead these bilateral arrangements to ensure that these adequate security arrangements are put in place to protect our citizens who travel to Burkina Faso. I want to again point out another failure on the part of the government. Even when the crisis occurred, the government failed to offer coordinated government response. It has been six days since the incident occurred, and yet the minister responsible for defense, the minister responsible for foreign affairs have all failed even to make a trip to Burkina Faso to engage at the high level to ensure that the circumstances are ascertained and measures are put in place to forestall this unfortunate happening. Mr. Speaker, another failure I wish to point out was the failure on the part of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Ministry of Defense even to activate TAMIO's consular response. As we speak, the bodies of our compatriots who perished have not been in a dignified manner identified. There is no dignified repatriation of their bodies.
Yes, you have 1 minute more.
Even before the authorities, the Ghanaian authorities will get there, belatedly, the bodies have been buried. So we are denying their families the opportunity to have a dignified burial for these people. Mr. Speaker, when the LWAC incident occurred and 6 people were killed, immediately that same day, an urgent statement was admitted. Minister for Defense came here and briefed the House. Till now, 6 days, no minister for national security, minister for defense, minister for foreign affairs, none has had the courtesy to even appear before this House to brief the House. This goes to show the negligence on the part of the state and those whose responsibilities it is to protect our citizens. Mr. Speaker, in conclusion.
Honorable member, your time is up.
In conclusion. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, I give the floor to Honorable Kwame Governs Agboja.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker.
The time is 5:46.
Mr. Speaker, I join my colleague who just spoke to extend our condolences to our compatriot who died in this horrific situation. We pray that those who are injured, and we are aware that many of them have recovered, and those who are still recovering, we wish them a speedy recovery. Mr. Speaker, the statement is supposed to be a very solemn one, and to unite us to make sure that we do the right thing. But, Mr. Speaker, when my colleague was speaking, he spoke about many things that I would give him the benefit of the doubt because he's probably not aware of what actually took place. He used the word, they were led to the slaughter. Mr. Speaker, no Ghanaian was led to the slaughter. My colleague is a reverend minister and knows very well that nobody was led to the slaughter. Mr. Speaker, he also sought to denigrate and the very diplomatic and very hardworking staff of our country in Burkina Faso. For your information, in fact, they have been praised for the tenuous and helpful activities they did. They were actually there and did everything possible to give support to our people. So the statement you made that there was nothing like that is completely false, that as a matter of fact. Mr. Speaker, indeed, Ghanaians are all over the world. Today, it may sound very politically convenient for you to say that even if one person died in that situation, it's a very horrific situation that must be dealt with. But we are in this country when 44 of our compatriots were killed in 2005 in Gambia. We were expecting that President Kufuor should have made sure that those 44 people should have had people escorting them around Gambia. So let us separate politics from some of the realities. What happened was wrong. It is a terrorist situation, and I know from the briefing I had was that our country did whatever they could, and we are still working with people to make sure that the rest of the people in Burkina Faso are protected. But, Mr. Speaker, just to say that some of the things that happen in our country cannot be political. And I want to caution all our colleagues that whilst it may sound, and the use of the words like were led to what, they should have been escorted, how do you call it? They should have been given travel advice and everything. Mr. Speaker, even when you travel to, how many of us here on both sides, when we travel even into countries that we call safe, how many of us here entered United Kingdom or United States and reported to our mission that we are in those countries? We don't do it. Otherwise, show us evidence that when you travel. So, Mr. Speaker, it is easy. You travel across the globe. How many times did you report yourself to the mission? Mr. Speaker, yes, our compatriots went to Burkina Faso to trade in tomatoes and other things. Unfortunately, the problem between Mali and Burkina Faso, the area where the thing happened was clearly an isolated place that terrorists have operated there before. So it is not as if it is something that has happened which is a fault of nobody. So I was going to say to my colleague that please, families are still grieving. Families are still trying to nurse injured members. So let us be very careful the way we speak about these things. And I'm waiting to hear how the former defense minister would have handled that in the past. how that former defense minister, in fact, you said that because we didn't have a substantive minister. Under President Kufuor, we had a substantive minister, yet 44 of our compatriots were murdered in Gambia. So it is not about whether we have ministers or not. So let us be guided.
1 minute more.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I take the opportunity again to wish the families of the deceased our condolences and pray that those who are injured recover fully, and so that the ties between our neighbors, Burkina Faso and others, we need to strengthen these ties to make sure that we work against terrorists wherever they operate in our country. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
I'll give the floor to Honorable Abu Jinapo. The time is 5:50, so you stop.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
5:55.
Mr. Speaker, let me join my colleagues to express our condolences to the family. And very quickly, Mr. Speaker, to throw light on what the Minister for Roads have just said. Mr. Speaker, countries across the world give travel advices. The United Kingdom does it, the United States does it. In fact, our government, President Mohammed's government, after this incident in Burkina Faso, has issued a travel advice. So it's very normal for governments to issue travel advices. Mr. Speaker, what happened in Gambia was unfortunate, and indeed, this is the second time Ghanaians have been murdered in such circumstances outside the shores of our country. Mr. Speaker, but it has to be distinguished. This is a terrorist attack. What happened in Gambia was not a terrorist attack. Mr. Speaker, that is why leading security experts such as Dr. Kwesi Enin, Emmanuel Bombandi, Vladimir Nchidanso have indicated that what happened in Burkina Faso should be a huge wake-up call to the Ghanaian national security apparatus. And Mr. Speaker, we should not belittle this matter. This House should pay particular attention to what has happened in Burkina Faso. This is a major security breach. On a daily basis, our compatriots travel to Burkina Faso, to Togo, to Cote d'Ivoire. Is their daily existence. And therefore, if tomato sellers, marketers, and traders have been murdered, tomorrow it could be students. Tomorrow next, it could be other group of Ghanaians. And therefore, Mr. Speaker, across the divide, we should agree that the demands the minority have made, that we should have a bipartisan inquiry into this matter, should not be belittled. This is a major wake-up call to the national security apparatus of our country. Mr. Speaker, what will the Minister for Defense, the Honorable Dominic Netewol, have done differently if he had the opportunity? Mr. Speaker, I want to indicate to my friend, the Minister for Roads, that what the Defense Minister would have done is exactly what he did when President Akufo-Addo was in office. The Accra Initiative. The Accra Initiative was a major initiative by the Akufo-Addo administration, which brought the countries along the coast, Ghana, Togo, Benin, and Nigeria, and which co-opted Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. And Mr. Speaker, in all modesty, as Deputy Chief of Staff and Minister for Lands, when I had the privilege to sit in the National Security Council, I saw at first hand the work the Accra Initiative did, which ensured that we had sharing of intelligence, which ensured that we collaborated with our neighbors, which ensured that we had robust mechanisms to prevent, to preempt, to protect, and to respond. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, for 8 years, not even one soul of our compatriots was lost in Burkina Faso. Mr. Speaker, the second thing the Akufo-Addo government would have done, and the minister asked that question, is that, Mr. Speaker, we will not align in the conflict in Burkina Faso. We will continue to be leaders in ECOWAS, and we will continue to support legitimate governments across the West African region. But we will be careful, Mr. Speaker, not to portray our government in a manner which will make our citizens targets. Mr. Speaker, security experts indicated immediately the president of Burkina Faso, General Ibrahim Traoré, became a special guest at the inauguration of President Mahama. And I'm not saying it. Security experts indicated, Mr. Speaker, that Ghanaians were going to become targets. And indeed, these traders, Mr. Speaker, let's ask ourselves the fundamental question. These traders are not combatants. These traders do not play any role in the conflict in Burkina Faso. These traders do not pose any threat. So why were they attacked? Mr. Speaker, I think our friends from the other side should agree with us for us to have this bipartisan inquiry, to assemble the facts, and to have the situation unraveled in a bipartisan and objective manner. Mr. Speaker, because I want to indicate that the allegation or suspicion other security experts have posited, that it is because Ghana is seen to be aligning with the government of Burkina Faso, our citizens have become targets. Let us establish that allegation to be true or not. I am not insisting that it's true, but we need to find out the truth. So I conclude by indicating that this is beyond politics. This is beyond MPP and NDC. We've never had this before. This is unprecedented. This is a major wake-up call to the security architecture of our country and to the Parliament of Ghana. And therefore, let us set up this bipartisan committee of inquiry. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Atamils. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I know this is a very sad thing that has happened to our members in Burkina Faso. But just to answer some of the questions over there.
Your time is 5:55, so you stop.
Thank you.
Exactly as
the killings are avoidable. The killings are avoidable. But let me remind you something. Let me remind you of something. Your former flag bearer, who's now your new flag bearer, went on TV and said the best thing he has ever done in the north was the Palugu Dam. This Palugu Dam was supposed to help us irrigate some land. Look, what happened was we spent 12 million US dollars, and we don't have anything to show. If this dam has been built, we would have been able to grow our tomatoes up north. Ghanaians wouldn't have to go to Burkina. You spend that. You know what we need to do? Let's find out who chopped that $12 million.
Honorable Atamis, you have done 1 minute.
Block over there.
Honorable Atamis, you have done 1 minute. So,
thank you.
Yes, Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, with respect. Mr. Speaker, if we use this platform to open, can I finish?
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, this is a statement that deals with matters specifically mentioned in the statement. Mr. Speaker, if the Honorable Atamils enjoying that privilege as a member of the House uses that privilege to attack our flag bearer and quote
Members, order. Let there be order.
Mr. Speaker, I would want to invite the chair to order that aspect of the submissions that sought to quote the flag bearer of the MPP, and Mr. Speaker, and to attribute comment one unrelated to the subject matter in issue, and two And two, to impute improper motive. Mr. Speaker, time and again, even in admitting statements, you have had cause to caution and even to edit situations where His Excellency the President's name has come under reference in statement, and this side has respected that. Mr. Speaker, they are our leaders. Let us be fair, because as soon as that Pandora box is allowed to be open, no, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Atamils.
You're still listening to 3FM 92.7. We've been bringing you live proceedings from Ghana's parliament, where the minority and the majority have been sharing their thoughts on recent jihadist attacks in Burkina Faso that claimed the lives of 8 Ghanaians. And in and of itself, it looks as though they are politicizing the issue of terror attacks. But the bigger conversation is whether or not Ghana can prevent this from recurring and how our citizens can be protected. Well, that conversation continues in Parliament, but that's it for our show this evening. If you go to our website, 3news.com, you'll get updates of all the stories we brought to you this evening and several other stories making rounds in Ghana and around the world. Thank you very much for listening to 3FM 92.7. We are resuming regular programming.